Good afternoon, currency recap time. Joe with you here. It's Thursday, the 24th of April. You guys know how this works. Let's get into the meaningful news of the day. Let's take a look at these markets overall. And if I've got some trades, you know I'd love to share them.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
Moving over to the market analysis, folks, it's pretty much the same that we've seen over the last little bit, at least when it comes to U.S. markets. So let's just start there. So U.S. markets continue their relief move higher, but they are approaching some key levels. We'll get to the chart in a second. But I'm seeing a lot of earnings results along with some easing tensions adding to the market. And boy, I put that in quotes because it's just the idea of, okay, the Trump administration is not going to fire Powell. They're willing to make discussions with China. 140% tariffs. Maybe they're getting down to maybe 50 or so a lot of this stuff is kind of easing the tensions. And that's as deep as I'm going to go because that could change tomorrow. So kind of what we're seeing. Now, what has that been doing to the currencies? Well, it's actually been kind of mellowing them out as well. We saw them start pretty wide, but now we're getting tight. Now, these look like they're some big moves up and down, but the biggest move we had up was just shy of 0.5%, and that was on the keyway, and the biggest down was over 0.5% on the US dollar, which you'd expect to see that in a market. If the stock market is moving higher, at least on the US side, its currency should slide a little bit. A little bit of a slide out of the yen as well, and the franc. The pound and the euro pretty much flat. CAD dropped a bit, but a good little push to the risk on currencies today, which I would kind of expect based on what I've seen in these markets the last couple of days. Another 2% the S&P put on today. The other markets did pretty good as well. We've got some big tech numbers coming out. We got Google coming out. So I think that has a lot to do with maybe some of the moves we're going to see to the upside when it comes to speculative purchasing. We'll see how long that lasts. World index up as well. Crypto down, but it's a little misleading because crypto's been very strong and it still looks pretty good here. Gold with a good move to the upside and oil with a small bounce as well. So here's the cryptos overall. Bitcoin pretty much flat. Bitcoin Cash with a decent drop, but it's the most tumultuous. And you'll see here they're all pretty decent charts. Ethereum down 1.4 and then Litecoin up 0.43. So I didn't really have to change much when it came to the outlook. The only thing I did was we are now above that 20-day moving average. So I went from a -3 to a -2 just from how simplistic our score is from top to bottom. It doesn't mean that I'm getting any more bullish. It just means I'm less aggressively bearish. But it's at a very key level. So let's go ahead and just take a look at that level. We've been talking about this 5,500 for quite some time. And what's so easy to see is it's just a line in the sand where it didn't break it the first time, bounced one last time, and now it's using it as resistance. Big move here, a little bit there. So it just becomes a special place. What I love about price action is there's no real rhyme or reason for it. You don't need anything to fundamentally, I should say, reinforce it. But it is definitely being respected because we are seeing moves off of it. Now, when that comes to what to think about moving forward, it just depends on what it does once it gets there. So a very distinct, strong candle to the upside, lots of things maybe clearing up, whatever it is that made investors comfortable enough to, let's go ahead and put some money to work, whether that's earnings or easing tensions, or it could just be a short cover rally. A lot of traders that are maybe short the markets just got squeezed out and have to cover margins. The volume, not very impressive, nowhere near what we saw when we saw this big back and forth, but it is floating higher. So the idea is, could this hit this and roll over? Of course it could. Now, what we do have here is these higher lows and a resistance area here. So I can draw a descending here and an increasing, or I should say an ascending there. This is called the symmetrical triangle pattern. And of course, it's going to kind of meet right at that key level. So we'll see where it goes. Now, what can you guys take from this today? Nothing. It's just a follow through from a bounce we've seen for a few days. There's no confirmation that it's going to be bullish, and there's no confirmation that it's done moving higher yet. We have to wait for this thing to roll over and actually make a move to the downside. So I'm just going to stay at that half glass empty because of the overall chart itself. Let's get into some of the economic numbers here. And there's been some interesting ones. We've got a lot of back and forth when it comes to the euro and the pound. We've got the dollar here with its flash PMI at 50.7. The new home sales had a huge spike. Now, that could be homes that have been purchased that were actually closing, but they're specific to new builds. Now, if you go down, I'm just going to jump straight down to here. This was today's existing home sales. We've got a drop in existing home sales. Now, a lot of that has to do with sales that aren't being met, meaning a lot of people are seeing for sale signs where nobody's interested, and it could become the worries of what could happen in the future, etc. I think this is the best representation of that worry is today's durable goods order, 9.2% versus a 2.1. You could refer to this as kind of a mad dash to avoid tariffs. Maybe some companies that are pretty dependent on specific materials that can be taxed are trying to just load up inventory. That's all I'm going to look at that. I don't think it's a demand thing. I think it's more of kind of a last dash to the store to see what you can get. So we'll see where that goes. Now, what do we have moving forward? Well, we got Great British Pound here, or I should say the UK's got retail sales coming up. So does Canada. It'll be interesting to see if those start to slide or where they're at when it comes to their economies. And then right at the bottom, if you guys can squint down there, it's the consumer sentiment number from the U.S. side. And I imagine that's going to slide a little bit lower just because there's probably a lot of worries out there. What is I'm not sure about the impact it's going to have. That's going to come a little bit later. With that all being said, folks, let's just jump straight into our currency analysis. As always, let's just go straight to the velocity score, and we're going to start with the yen here. Not a lot of movement. Some things that were negative kind of stayed there or slightly lower, went to zero back and forth. I mean, not a lot of movement. You could see that these things kind of stayed in their overall original trend or movement. So I'm going to keep the yen where it's at. It's looking like a really nice descending triangle here pattern, right at a support level. Looks like it's bleeding through it. Good flat RSI below that 50. So I'm just going to keep it at that -3 that we had at yesterday. Let's move over to the dollar. The dollar's kind of in a similar situation. It was showing a little bit of strength there for a while as it really turned up and popped out, flipping the RSI, flipping everything. But you know how velocity works, folks. It turns us right back around. Now, I'm okay with keeping this kind of as a neutral. In fact, I just flattened it out. I like the flip on the SAR. I don't like this drop here, but I do like the consolidation. Also on the price action, there's a little bit of a blip there. So I imagine this thing just kind of consolidates for a while unless we get some sort of news. Jumping into the franc. Franc's kind of in the same situation that I saw the yen in. And in fact, all of them are very similar. The dollar's a little bit more sideways than the franc and the yen. But another possible opportunity, I just put it down as a -3. A rollover here on the moving average. The SAR flip, a very, very flat RSI, well below that 50 line. I'm just kind of waiting for this kind of to break to the downside. So if you're looking for something weak to pair with, it's definitely I'm leaning towards the yen and the franc. And it's only been a couple of days, folks, but I didn't see too much change, even with the relief that we're seeing in some of these. Next up is going to be the euro. This is kind of flattening itself out, a little bit anemic. We got the RSI, it's flat just below that 50, but the flip-flop on the SARS looks promising, although it's more of a consolidation. I put this a little bit with where the dollar's at. This seems to be a little bit more of a tight base. I gave it a -1 just based on our scoring. However, I could see you guys scored as a 0, something I'm not really interested right now. Now, one thing that I thought was interesting is the pound. The pound is starting to show a little bit of strength. The pound is showing the same kind of consolidation, but it has turned pretty decent off that bottom it set a little while ago. Flip on the SAR, we're seeing the flat moving average start to tilt up, but it's the price action. You guys know me well enough by now that I really like to follow. So I like to see this price action, a little bit of an emergence. I don't think this thing's going to go gangbusters anytime soon, but if it could just kind of stay where it's at, it's definitely one of the stronger currencies. Maybe we can put it against that the franc or the yen. Next up, let's take a look at the CAD. The CAD is kind of hanging in there. It had a pretty decent bounce on Tuesday. You could see a pretty good move, and I like how it just kind of stayed. It looks like it's kind of rolling over. It did flip the SAR, but if this could pivot at that point, I'd be fine keeping the CAD a little bit stronger than most. I gave it a 0 because I want it to confirm first, and I could easily bump this back up to a +1. It's just this kind of a pullback here where this moving average is just kind of meandering, a flip-flop on the SAR, and a flat RSI right at 50. But this does have a chance to maybe gather some momentum and turn to the upside. So I'm just going to keep it a 0 for now. Not really interested in pairing it with anything at the moment. Look at the risk ons, though. I'm starting to like these again. Aussie kind of hit its head up at this area here. It was easy for me to keep it at a +1. You could argue a +2. The only reason I didn't is because this moving average seems a little bit more consolidating than it does moving higher. The SAR is, I think it's about to flip if it moves sideways or goes a little higher. So yeah, you could argue a +2, but I'm going to keep it at a +1. Wait to see if it's going to break up by that resistance. The Kiwi, on the other hand, looks a little bit stronger, and that was easy for me to give it a +2 because we got this moving average that's actually moving higher. The flip on the SAR is the only thing that hurt it, but I think it's going to push back. I do like how this is just flatlining above that 50. So my two strongest currencies as of late is going to be the pound and the Kiwi against something like the yen, the dollar, or even the franc. Let's move over to our cryptos. And you can see, even though they've got, here's Bitcoin Cash. Here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash was the worst, but you'll see it's got a strong chart as well. They're just high tight. I mean, a good move, huge surge. They were very strong, outperforming. I like this high tight base. I'm going to keep them all up in the +1, +2 range, even with the day that we had. The only one that I'm going to knock down a little bit is Cash, because Bitcoin Cash it kind of failed a lot more than the others. It looks like it's still wanting to roll over. It's below that moving average. The SAR's down. It's moving down. So I gave that kind of a 0, but folks, we've seen this time and time again. This could easily flip up and just shoot to the moon. Let's take a look at the others. They're all pretty much the same. This is Ethereum. Ethereum, I kept it on the higher +2. Almost a confirmation of a bull pullback, that big move. It's up at this area. It broke above this resistance, flatlining well above that 50 on the RSI. Let's take a look at Litecoin, which that's that tough one. Sometimes it doesn't always move with the others, but it's up there. It's consolidating. A little pivot point shows that, hey, we pivoted. So they're all pretty strong. Not a lot of changes across the board after the big surges we've seen in crypto. Just kind of up there, moving sideways. So here's the velocity score for today. Pretty obvious to see what's kind of going on. We'll see if there's any sustainability. If you're looking for trades, yeah, it's going to be pretty obvious. The franc again. You could do the CAD. I know the CAD's still at a 0. I still think it's the stronger of those three that I mentioned. However, pairing it with something like the pound or the Kiwi might be kind of cool. So since we're here, let's take a look at a couple of those and see if there's anything worth it. First one I wanted to go for was the pound yen. I like it. I just like the chart. It looks very similar to the pound itself. Looks like it could float higher. This might be a pretty decent little trade. It's got that very similar kind of an ascending triangle here that might be breaking. It did push above it and it's consolidating. These are very difficult because they rarely just shoot straight up like we've seen in the past. They kind of meander, and it's just that weakness that we need to see in the one we're pairing against it. So I like the pound yen here. It looks like a pretty good move to the upside. Since we're here, let's just take a look at the pound dollar. And you can see the pound dollar doesn't look as promising, more of kind of a range bound at this point. So I kind of like the pound yen over the pound dollar here. Let's take a look at the franc pound, the pound franc. You can see this is probably the best of the correlation, but it looks like we might have missed it. I wouldn't be too upset if somebody wanted to see if it could break above some resistance here and kind of float higher. It's definitely the strongly correlated, I think, the pound franc by far. So either the pound franc or I think the pound yen looks pretty decent as well. Let's take a look at the Kiwi crosses here. Here's the Kiwi CAD first. Kind of the similar, this high tight base. It looks pretty good. Let's take a look at the Kiwi franc. A little bit stronger on that end. And then let's take a look at the Kiwi yen. And you can see, yeah, pretty high and tight base. Geez Louise, I'll tell you what, they all look very, very similar. It just depends on which currency that you believe is going to stay weak against that. So I like the Kiwi pairings. But as far as the pound pairings go, I think the pound yen might be my favorite. So there it is. There are some trades out there. How sustainable they are, I don't know. But just stick to the velocity side. Targets, stop entry targets. Just stick to your rules. There are trades out there. So the U.S. markets, they continue that bounce towards some key levels, and they're right about there. And I imagine, folks, that's probably where they're going to settle. I would not be surprised to see if we push above that, maybe retrace it, and that becomes kind of this little meandering point. What's going to do the currencies? It just depends on some of the announcements out there. Still more of a corrective action here over any sort of stability. I know things seem to be okay. Maybe we're going to figure this out, but right now it's still kind of corrective action. If you've seen with these currencies, they just kind of push-pull against each other. Play relative strength and weakness as always, and hey, we can make trades. Just position size yourselves correctly, and let's just not shoot for the moon. These are going to be kind of dinks and dunks, so trade accordingly. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. Talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.